Afternoon world, it's Wednesday, it's the 8th of April 2018, it's about 12:15 p.m. UK time, it's about 8:15 in the morning, 7:15 in the morning Eastern Standard Time, and this is my look at, from an astrological perspective, at the horoscope of America. The reason I'm doing this now is because more people seem to be dying in America now of a virus than anywhere else or everywhere else put together, it seems. When I hear the reports that there's well over 1,000 people a day dying in America now of virus in this last day or two, my heart goes out to them. I've been to America 3 or 4 times. Once about 15 years ago, where I went to LA and Denver and Boston and New York, and then a couple of times to New York, and recently last year where I went to San Francisco. And every single time I've been to America, I've been treated with nothing but hospitality, courtesy, friendship. Yeah, I actually really like being in America. My astrocartography is great there. I've got so many friends there. I'm so well looked after there. The country itself, I love it. Now, the horoscope for America. There's a lot of talk on the blogosphere, on the internet, around which is the true horoscope for America. We know that America was born on the 4th of July 1776. Most astrologers use what's called the Sibley chart, set for 5:10 in the evening. Some astrologers, including some very well-known astrologers, suggest that America has Gemini rising, not Sagittarius rising. But for America to have Gemini rising suggests that the country then would have come into being around about 2 hours before sunrise, or an hour or two before sunrise, suggesting that instead of the Declaration of Independence being signed around 5:10 in the evening, giving Sagittarius rising, it would have been signed somewhere between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. in the morning, which would give Gemini rising. I find that difficult to swallow. I've always used the Sibley chart. I will continue to do so. This makes America Cancer with Sagittarius rising and the moon in Aquarius. I'm not so interested in deconstructing America's chart. I've done that a number of times. What I do find interesting, though, is the current transits to America's chart. Particularly in America's chart, it has the opposition of Mercury in late Cancer to Pluto in late Capricorn. America's Pluto return is only 2 or 3 years away. 2-3 years away, yeah. Pluto is currently opposite America's Mercury. Saturn is currently conjunct America's Pluto. Jupiter is currently opposite America's Mercury and conjunct America's Pluto. So this whole Mercury-Pluto opposition in America's chart is coming up for grabs. In an individual's chart, Mercury opposite Pluto gives a very in-depth, psychologically orientated mind, where one is always looking underneath what is buried, what is hidden, what can I bring to the surface, what can I reveal. It's great for being a private detective, a forensic accountant, a criminal psychologist. It can give a lot of paranoia and phobia, especially when young, but also an in-depth insight into human behaviour when older. When viewed from a national perspective, it's a bit harder to qualify. Pluto rules Scorpio, which in America's chart is the 12th house, the house of the unconscious, the subconscious, the dream. Mercury rules Gemini, which in America's chart is the 7th house, the house of one-to-one relationships. And with Mercury opposite Pluto, there's always been the capacity for maybe it's not the case, but it seems as if it's the case on the surface, that a lot of people distrust America, or that America distrusts a lot of its partners or neighbours. I've done a lot of research in the last couple of days on various conspiracy theories over the last 50 years. And of course, the big 2 conspiracy theories both happened in America, the 9/11 bombing and Kennedy's assassination. And it does seem that a lot of conspiracy theories started in America, some of them true, some of them not. But more on that another time. But with the Mercury opposite Pluto in America's chart, it does give that in-depth psychological understanding of human behaviour that gives rise to, in some cases, suspicion, and in other cases, caution about believing everything you're being told. Rightly so as well. But with Jupiter in the sky having just finished opposition to America's Mercury and now coming up to America's Pluto over the coming few weeks, as well as Pluto and Saturn being in attendance, it does seem as if the current situation in America that's larger than life and over the top is only going to be getting worse in the short term. I would hope for some type of peak in the next couple of weeks, and when Jupiter stands still and starts going retrograde in early May, I would hope, but not only in America but all over the world, that the virus will really start decreasing, although I do anticipate it returning again later in the year. It's interesting that Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto will all be very active in America's chart again around early mid-November of this year, which is when the election for president is supposed to be happening. Years ago, when Donald Trump became president, I made a video where I said I can't see him doing a full term. I've since been castigated many times for this, but I've had occasion to revisit that. He seems someone who's very concerned around his legacy. So I'm still not convinced that he's going to do a full term. And if I'm wrong, I'll hold my hands up and go, hey, I'm wrong. But we'll see. We'll see. I suspect that if a second wave of the virus does come, then not only in America, but also globally, the ways of dealing with it will be very different to the ways we've dealt with it in the first wave. More on that another time. Now, a couple of great jokes for you. I'm going to have fun with this. Firstly, a client in Singapore sent me this one. There's a professor running a computer class, and he says to all his students, right, let's have a bit of fun. So he splits all the class into male and female, and he says, right, with two genders, I want you to describe to me what gender computers are and why. So he gave them 10 minutes to work out their reasons, and after 10 minutes he said to the men, okay, give me your understanding of what gender computers are and why. And the men said, okay, you were unanimous. Computers are essentially female for 4 reasons. Firstly, no one except their creator understands their internal logic. Female computers, they speak in code that only they and other experts understand. Thirdly, every mistake they store on their hard drive for later retrieval. And fourthly, once you commit to one, you end up paying out half your money on future accessories. And the professor went, okay. So then he turned to the woman and he said, okay, what's your opinion? What gender are computers and why? And the woman said, no, computers are essentially male. And there's 4 reasons why computers are male. Because computers, like men, first of all, to get their attention, you've got to turn them on. Secondly, they've got lots of data, but they still can't think for themselves. Thirdly, they're supposed to solve problems, but half the time they are the problem. And fourthly, as soon as you commit to one, you realise that if you'd waited just a little bit longer, you'd have got a much better model. It cracked me up when I heard that. And the second thing I've got for you today is something I've done 4 or 5 times before over the last 11 years, 10 years that I've been on YouTube. But in today's climate, it's a little bit more contentious. So, here once again is the poem on smiling. Smiling is infectious. You catch it like the flu. When someone smiled at me today, I started smiling too. I walked around the corner and someone saw me grin. And when he smiled, I realised I had passed it on to him. I thought about the smile and then realised its worth. A single smile like mine could travel round the earth. So if you feel a smile begin, don't leave it undetected. Let's start a pandemic quick and get to the world infected. Catch you later, world. Bye.